Does the doctor, does the physician has the right to tell a lie to his patient? You are supposed to tell the other person the truth. But there are many ways to tell the truth. If you do not tell the truth at the right time, at the right place, the other person can die right away. And that is why you choose a good moment, a good time in order to tell him, so that he can receive the truth without having too big a shock. So not to tell the truth, to tell the truth in different ways, in a skillful way, is what a doctor should learn also. And sometimes we choose not to tell the truth in order to help the other person to survive. So it's not simple, so complicated. And that is why we need deep understanding to be able to practice opening the door, making exceptions. To bar means there's something something that is not bad, but you have to do it. And that there is something that is not in its nature is not a bad thing, but you have to refrain from doing that. It's like in Plum Village, the monks, the nuns, and the lay people are advised that when they go to the internet, they have to be accompanied by a second person. Not only when they go to the marketplace, to the pharmacy, to the post office, they have to go with another person. We call it the second body. That is the practice in Plum Village. So when you go to the internet, you have to be accompanied by a second body, so that you will not be venture into the realm that is not beneficial to you. And if you are a senior brother, and everyone knows that you never got into this place, but in order to set an example for your younger brothers and sisters, you always go to the internet in the presence of another brother. Suppose you drink a glass of wine every weekend, and you never get drunk at all. It gives you pleasure to drink a glass of wine every weekend, and in the last 30 years you have not got any damage, you have not got drunk, and now you come and people advise you to refrain, to stop completely alcohol. So you ask the question, why? Because it has not done you any harm at all. Why do you have to deprive you of that pleasure? A lady in the United Kingdom told me like that. In the last 30 years, I always had a glass of wine on Saturday. It has not done me any harm. Why do we have to receive the 5th mindfulness training and stop my glass of wine? It's my pleasure. I told her that, well, I know you are perfectly right when you say that it has not done you any harm. But the fact is that children, they always do like parents do. If parents smoke, they will smoke. You don't have the seed of alcoholism in you, but one of your children may have it. And that is why to stop drinking that is to support your children, not for your sake, but for your children's sake. That's to bar the negative, the harmful that may happen in the future, to bar, to obstruct the way. The Ministry of Circulation in France, they put an ad on television. They say that one glass is okay, but 3 glasses, well, will bring about destruction. So we are supposed to drink moderately, with moderation. But the fact is that if you don't take the first glass, there will be never a third glass. So refraining from taking the first glass is to bar the way. And that is why there is a practice called Ya, means barring the way. You go to the internet, there's no harm at all. You never get any harm. But your younger brother, your younger sister in the Dharma, he or she might got it. That is why you set the example. There's someone who drink alcohol and who drive, and he got home safely. He's very lucky. And he said that I drank alcohol and I'm all right. He's just lucky. So not to drink alcohol before you drive is to bar, to set an obstacle, to set up a barricade in order for not for the suffering, the harmful to happen. So this is also a set of criteria that is proposed by the Vinaya. Vinaya is the mindfulness trainings, the teaching on mindfulness trainings in Buddhism. There is another set called Trì Phạm. The 5 mindfulness trainings are the 10 mindfulness trainings that you have received. If you don't break them, they are whole. They are not broken. But if you transgress the rules and then you transgress. Sometimes you look like you don't transgress it, but in fact you do transgress it. Suppose you are in a place where someone is trying to kill someone else, and you have the capacity to intervene and to prevent the damage, and you don't do it. Although you are not a killer, but you transgress. You are violating the precept, because the precept is not to kill. You are not killing, but you allow the killing to take place. We call it la non-intervention. You don't intervene, and that is your fault. And when you see a situation like that, you should intervene. You cannot say that, well, I'm not responsible, it's not me who was doing that. But you were there, and you did not intervene. You are responsible. Sometimes we are forced to lie in order to save a life. And if you do not lie, you transgress. On the appearance, not to lie is the right thing. But in the substance, not to lie is a wrong thing, because if you don't lie, the other person will die right away. That is why this set of criteria is also important. On the appearance, it looks like right, but in the content, it's wrong. Sometimes you have to lie, and sometimes you have to kill. It's very difficult. And applied ethics is a kind of discipline that studies how a moral outcome can be obtained in specific circumstances. You don't just speculate, you don't just say what is right or wrong. In special situations, you have to put into action the norms that you have set up. Suppose we talk about the first atomic bomb dropped by President Harry Truman. It was on the 6th of August 1945. And the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, and 140,000 people died. Before that, President Roosevelt has said it very, very clearly that in a war you have to try your best not to kill innocent people, to avoid killing innocent people. And President Harry Truman also said the same. But America just succeeded in making the first atomic bombs. And the military advisors and political advisors advised him to use it. At that time, the Allies were already winning in the Pacific. And yet, military and political advisors trying to persuade President Truman to use the atomic bomb. First, he did not want to do it because he was of the view not to take the life of civilians, trying the best to avoid that. But finally, they were able to convince him to drop the bomb on the ground that Japan will surrender after this bomb. Otherwise, the war can continue longer and many people will die. So if we kill a number of people, and if we can end the war after that, then it will save many people not to die later. And that is the argument, right or wrong. That is one of the situations where ethics, morality should be applied. It's not easy. I think the session must have been very long before the decision was made to drop the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima. And President Truman said that after making this decision, he slept like a baby. How can you sleep well when you know in advance that 140,000 lives will be taken? Maybe he has spent so many hours listening and discussing. He was exhausted. The bomb was dropped on the 6th. On the 7th, Japan has not surrendered. The 8th, Japan has not surrendered. And there was tendency to drop another bomb. So on the 9th of August, the second bomb was dropped on a smaller town. But when the bomb was dropped, 70,000 people died. And we know that the effect of the atomic bombs is very long-lasting, because many people, because of the fallout, continue to die after that. Anastasia birth control, using the pill. All these kind of things are circumstances when we must apply our understanding of ethics into. That is why we need to apply the ethics in order to solve the most difficult problems that we are having. The problem of marriage between the gay people, the lesbian people, the right people to die the way they want. All these kind of things need to apply the ethics. And that is why we as practitioners, we have to think clear. We have to practice looking deeply. We have to use the wisdom of the Buddha in order to come out with a very clear idea, a clear path for us to live accordingly and to offer to the world. And that is why I said that our retreat together here is a kind of collective meditation. We need mindful breathing, mindful sitting, mindful reflecting in order to bring about right thinking, right speech, truly right thinking. Because thinking might be wrong and you think it right thinking. The decision to drop bombs was thought to be right thinking. The noble path offered by the Buddha does not begin with right thinking. Because right thinking must be based on something in order to be truly right. And that is right view. Samyak Drishti. And for right view means wisdom, prajna, deep understanding. And that is the outcome, the fruit of practice. Because if we practice mindfulness and concentration, because we want to have insight. And that insight, that deep understanding, that knowledge, that wisdom is right view. And we shall learn that right view is the absence of all views. And for that we need the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra is a text that we recite every day. And the Heart Sutra provides us with the kind of means in order to get the right kind of understanding called right view, chánh kiến. In Plum Village, we used to say that right thinking is the kind, not right view, but right thinking is the thinking that goes along with compassion and understanding. If a thought that you produce does not have understanding and compassion in it, it's not right thinking. But that means that there should be the element of understanding in thinking in order for thinking to be right thinking. And understanding is just right understanding. So right understanding, right view is the foundation of all kind of other actions. Whether you think, whether you speak, whether you act, everything, if you want right, it should be based on right view. So right view is the foundation. And that is why for a system of, for a path of global ethic, we have to offer the best of the Buddhist tradition, right view, right understanding. And right understanding, as we learn in the Heart Sutra, transcends all these kind of criterion. That is the absolute criterion that overcome all these 5 sets of criterions. In the Heart Sutra, we learn that there is no birth, no death, no production, no destruction, no increasing, no decreasing. And if you continue, no right, no wrong, no suffering, no happiness, no beneficial, no harmful. And that is very important. We tend to believe that there is something called goodness. Goodness. Whether we are there or we are not there, goodness is there. Whether we are alive or we are already dead, goodness is there. That is a belief, that is a confirmation. And that may be represented by God or by a principle, but goodness is there. According to many religions, especially theistic religions, the world is a place, the world has been created by a powerful, loving God, all-powerful and loving God. And man is created after the world was created. The world was created as the house, the place for man to live. And man is created in the image of God, to be children of God. And God has created human beings with intelligence, with reasons, with freedom. And there is a schedule, a plan, a project of God. And the world is the arena, the platform where that plan, the schedule is realized. So, and God is the lawgiver. He said that this is good, you should do. This is bad, you should not do. And God represents goodness. That is approximately the religious approach to the problem of goodness. Goodness is there no matter what. Whether you are there or not there, goodness is there. Whether you are alive or you are dead, goodness is there. But in the Buddhist teaching, things are seen very differently. The good is not possible without the evil. The good is there because the evil is there. It's like the lotus and the mud, or the right and the wrong, the right and the left. Or the above and the below, or the inside or the outside, or the subject and the object. And if we study the Heart Sutra and the Prajnaparamita teaching, we see that good and evil are also a product of our mind. It's not an objective reality. It is like the famous pair of being and non-being. Many of you have listened to the Dharma talk about birth and dying. They talk about being and non-being. There are those who say that God is the ground of being, the ground of existence. But being is the opposite of non-being. How can you have the notion of being unless you have the notion of non-being? How you can have the notion of left without the notion of right? And the question someone asks is, if God is the ground of being, and then who will be the ground of non-being? So to identify with God, with being, is to diminish His greatness. In fact, God transcends both being and non-being. Being and non-being are ideas, product of our mind. God cannot be described in terms of being and non-being. And we say that to be or not to be, that's not the question. The same thing is true with good, the good and the evil. The notion of good, the goodness, is born from the notion of evil. The notion of evil is born from the notion of goodness. And reality transcends the notion of good and evil. It's like we have the notion of our consciousness is something in here, and the world is something, reality of reality is something out there. So there is a split between the in here, the out there, the subjective and the objective. But reality transcends that. And that is what a Buddhist teaching is about. That is why the Heart Sutra is so important. The teaching of emptiness, the teaching of interbeing is so important. We have to slowly witness and taste that kind of teaching in order to truly have right understanding, right view. Once you have the right view, and then everything will be truly right. And these are only means. These are sets of criteria are only means. And finally we have to transcend them. And that is why a system of ethics proposed by the Buddhist tradition should be without any dogma. Ethics without dogma. Because it must be free from all notions, including the notion of good and evil, right and wrong. I remember the last time we were in Italy, our retreat was so joyful. There were almost 100 children in the retreat. And that was a deep retreat also. The program for children was also very joyful. There were many young monks and nuns and young practitioners taking care of the children. I went to the store nearby, and I bought a bag of corn seed, and I distribute to every retreatant one seed of corn. I said, please take this home and plant it in a pot, and make sure that the soil in the pot is wet enough so that it will sprout. And then when the young plant of corn come out, you have to come and talk to it. So every child, every adult receive one. This is a kind of homework. And when the plant of corn, the corn stalk has two leaves, you come to ask. And the first question to ask is this: my dear young plant of corn, do you remember the time you were a grain of corn? And wait and listen. Dear plant of corn, do you remember the time you were a seed of corn? And maybe the plant of corn will be surprised. Me? A seed of corn? I don't believe it. And you tell him, you tell her, you tell the plant of corn, listen, I was there in the very beginning. I brought it from the retreat. I brought you from the retreat home. I put you in this pot. I water you every day. And I saw you sprouting. And from a seed of corn, you become a plant of corn. Even if you don't like to accept it, that is the truth. And try to convince the plant of corn that she was once was a seed of corn. And you can do better. You say, dear plant of corn, if you look into yourself with intelligence, you can still see the corn, the seed of corn alive in you. It's no longer in the form of a seed, but it's always in you. And you are that seed of corn. It's difficult for the plant of corn to accept, but that is the reality. In fact, the plant of corn is the continuation of the seed of corn. It is the seed of corn. You are telling only the truth, but maybe the plant of corn has a hard time to accept that. When you approach a young man, you tell him that you are the continuation of your father. You are your father. Because your father is now fully present in every cell of your body. And that is the truth if you have the time to reflect. And you will accept that you come from your father. You are the continuation of your father. And your father is fully present in you, in every cell. And whatever you do, your father is doing that with you. And when you are angry, your father gets angry. And when you get angry at yourself, you get angry at your father. And when you get angry at your father, you get angry with yourself. All these things are hard to be accepted by the young man. But that is the truth. One day, I remember I was walking on the street of London and I saw a book displayed in a bookstore. And I think that book is about psychotherapy. And the title is My Mother, Myself. I thought the teaching in there must be similar. I did not buy the book because I knew what is must be in it. So the Heart Sutra is not philosophy, it's not speculation. The Heart Sutra has to do with our very life, daily life. You think that you are a different person from your father, but you are him. You are his continuation. There is no father, there is no son. That is the message offered by the Heart Sutra. There is no father, there is no son. There is no separate father, there is no separate son. Father in the son, son in the father, father and son into are. And that is the way of looking. The way of looking that we train ourselves to use so that one day we will get into right view, prajna, the kind of understanding that can bring us the other shore, the shore of no delusion, the shore of enlightenment. And everything we do, we think, we speak will be right. And that is why right view is the foundation of everything that could be called right. The ecosystem is in you. The ecosystem is you. You are the planet is you. Anything harmful you do to the environment, you do it to yourself. And that teaching is very clear in the literature of Prajnaparamita. In the Diamond Sutra, we learn that the notion of man should be removed. Man cannot be there without non-man elements. If the mineral, the vegetable, the animal are not there, man cannot be there. So looking into man, we should see non-man elements. And to protect the non-man element, we protect man. We know very well that we have ancestors. Our ancestors are not only human, because our human ancestors are still very young. We appear on earth very late in the history of life. We have animal ancestors. They are still there in us. The reptile, the fish, and so on. They are still in our blood. We are them now. Not only we were them in the past, but we continue to be them in the present moment. We have animal ancestors. We have vegetable ancestors. In the Jataka stories, the Buddha was described as a tree, a fruit, a rock. And in fact, we have been in the past a rock, a tree, a cloud. But not only in the past, we continue to be a cloud now. A lot of cloud inside us. And we are drinking clouds every day. And we have mineral ancestors. And just look deeply into ourselves, we see that we are the whole history of life. We are the planet. So taking good care of us is to take care of the planet. If you know how to really take care of yourself, you are taking care of the planet. And to take care of the planet means to take care of you. In the Heart Sutra, we learn that there is no first noble truth, there is no second noble truth, there is no third noble truth, there is no fourth noble truth. Because the first is the second, the first is the third, the first is the fourth. There is no separation at all. And that is right understanding, right view. And if the Palestinians see that, they see that they are at the same time the Israelis. And if the Israelis see that, they say that the Palestinians are themselves and doing harm to each other, punishing harm to each other, is not the right thing to do. So right view is very important. Right understanding is very important. With right view, you see that the person you are going to kill is yourself. If there is a conflict between father and son, and if father and son has the right view, they will see that they are each other, and making each other suffer is to make oneself suffer. So that is why a code of ethics, a code of morality should include, should represent, should express that kind of insight, that insight of interbeing, of non-dualism. So please, when you share the first mindfulness training, not killing, share in such a way that they get that insight. Because people are killing each other because they don't have the insight of interbeing. They don't see that the person they are killing is themselves. And we have to present all the 5 trainings in that way too. Because if you consume without mindfulness, you are destroying yourself, you are destroying the planet. And the foundation of all 5 precepts, 5 trainings, are the deep understanding, the right understanding, the kind of deep vision that can bring you to the shore of well-being, the cessation of ill-being. And you have to study the Noble Eightfold Path in that light. And what is right thinking? Right thinking is the kind of thinking that goes along with the insight of non-duality, of emptiness, of interbeing. And it is possible for us, practitioners, to produce thoughts that go along with that kind of insight. And thought produced like that will heal ourselves and heal the world, because it will remove separation and despair. And the 5 commandments, the five mindful understandings are not the 5 commandments coming from an authority like a God, but come from our own wisdom, our own insight. And that insight is the outcome of our practice, mindfulness and concentration. So the best thing we can offer to the world as practitioners, the product that we can offer to the world is insight. That insight will liberate us, and that insight is not possible without mindfulness and concentration. And that is why to live our life in mindfulness and with concentration is to continue to produce insight for our own liberation, for our own healing, for our own nourishment, and the liberation, healing, and nourishment of the world. So please study the Noble Eightfold Path again, and see right thinking, right speech, right action, right livelihood again on the light of right understanding, samyak dristi, the kind of view that transcends all views. All views, all teaching of the Buddha should be considered to be instruments and not absolute truth, including the teaching of impermanence, no self, and interbeing. You may be able to remove the notion of permanence, but you might got caught in the notion of impermanence, and it does not help. Impermanence does not help. Don't think that you have got what the Buddha wants you to get. No, you have not got it. You have to give up your impermanence. You have to be free, not only from the notion of permanence, but you have to be free also from the notion of impermanence. You suffer because you get caught in the notion of self. But if you get caught in the notion of non-self, you continue to suffer. And that is why you have to overcome the notion of non-self. That is why right view is the removal of all kinds of views, including the view of impermanence, of non-self, of interbeing, and so on. And that is the essential of Prajna Paramita.